Good morning, beautiful people. First and foremost, the first session, let's clap for yourselves first. Let's create an energy and let's clap for yourself. Right. So in the world of overflowing with content, the real currency isn't just screens or stars, it's story. Today we'll dive into powerful narratives that are being built into global empires and why top producers bet on stories to drive impact, brand, and long-term value. I'm excited to explore this with Shibasish Sarkar, Aashish Singh, and Kaushal Modi, leaders shaping our future of storytelling. Thank you for coming and being a part. It gives me such a pleasure that I'm sharing and moderating this narrative capital. So we'll take the conversation as a free flow, and the first question that in today's landscape where audience have more options than ever, what makes a story stand out enough for you to invest in it, and how do you balance creative risk versus commercial certainty? You can start from Shibasish.
I think if any one of us or all of us would have answered to this question, that itself, I think we have been, that's the business, right? That's what we are all trying to get an answer to it, that how do you balance between the creative and commerce when you look at a story, and how do you identify that story to go forward? On a serious note, I think, though it may sound a bit cliche, but that's what I think the entire spectrum of the content production and content dissemination is happening. What we have seen over decades, or probably last 50 odd years, 100 odd years, is that, and in this evolution of the entire creator economy, what we have seen is that ultimately what connects, ultimately what we are all trying to do is to connect a storyteller to a story consumer, right? I mean, in any form of art or any form of creation, if we go. Of course, what has happened is that with technological evolution, with change in consumer habit, with newer form of content creation or dissemination, it is becoming, I won't say easy, but it is becoming more and more transparent that what actually is connecting. I mean, there are days and there are ages now and presently with the amount of data what you generate with any kind of dissemination of content, what you can get through your technology shifts, be it in platform, be it in theaters, be it in any of the medium. Probably we as the producers community or people who back a creator community have a little more data of consumer mind, consumer thoughts, consumer understanding. And in all honesty, while we come from different spectrum of background, the first choice, and I'll keep it here at short and we'll probably more discuss later on, is the first choice is always to see whether it excites me creatively. And if something excites me creatively, then probably we progress with the journey, and then we put the parameters of consumer, parameters from the commercial point of view, that consumer will like it or not, right? So first excitement, we try to think that whether it creatively makes sense, and if it makes sense, there of course there is a whole lot of journeys to identify or to even to take a gut call on that. Then probably the second stage is that whether it makes sense commercially, whether it works at a consumer mind or not. And there are many. I'm happy to, hear from everyone else, and we'll probably, this is the sole point which we'll discuss. So that probably will be my thought process.
Right. Aashish?
Yeah, good morning. Just to add to what Shibasish was just talking about. So from my point of view, let's divide it into two. One is the creative side of it, and of course the commerce is very important to balance it, to greenlight it. From a creative point of view, there are certain filters that I personally would look at. To start with, is it hitting the target audience? Is it for a wider audience? Are we focusing on a particular cultural issue? So obviously your then audience could become small. Is it scalable? So one important question in today's time is, when you're investing in a story, are you building an IP for the future? That's a very critical thing, because if you can scale it up, post the success of the film, it can really help you to build on it years on, and there are many examples in our industry. So we've had Dhoom from Yash Raj, we have Singham that Shibasish was involved with. And these films have been now being made since 15 years and 20 years. And each time the studio can continue building on those IPs and successfully do that. The other thing very important is there are times when a certain genre is working better for the industry for whatever reason. So there was a phase in the 1980s and 90s when action and drama was doing really well, but love stories were not doing very well. Then with the advent of multiplexes, suddenly you saw that comedy was working, romantic comedy was working, because there was a certain audience that started coming to the multiplex that was more evolved. Now suddenly, if we come in the present times, in the last couple of years, you suddenly see horror comedy working, because that's a genre that people haven't seen. A lot of films with mythology as a backdrop have worked off late. So I'm not saying that we should be copying the trend, but we should definitely be aware of the trend to know that, okay, this is what the audience is liking, and the old formula is not working anymore, so let's not do that. That's very important. There are times when you also have a certain caliber of star in your film. So I come from Red Chillies, so if Mr. Shah Rukh Khan is a part of the film, the thinking to greenlight that film by Mr. Shah Rukh Khan will be very different, because he will obviously probably want to do a film that can do a big number. And to achieve that number, you have to do a certain kind of a film with certain things involved in it, like music, good music, great action, great drama, something that you can market and reach to a wider audience. So that these things also play a role. Who's playing a role in your film? Do you have a big cast, or is it highly content driven? Certain high content driven films also do well because they address a certain issue. So we've had films in the past, like say a Padman, which dealt with sanitary napkins, but had a very good story to tell with that. So there are times when you do it for a social cause also. So these are pretty much the things that we look at to greenlight films from a creative point of view. But the most important thing, especially at a time when box office is not doing that well for all films, box office in today's times is over-indexing for films that are liked by people, and people when they don't like to watch a film, the films just flop. So that is something that a studio has to be very conscious about, because when you lose money, you lose a lot of money nowadays. So from that point of view, what we have to see is that, are we able to, purely from a studio point of view, I'm saying, and to balance the commerce side of it, are there pre-sales that are possible? So we sell our digital rights, we sell our satellite rights, we sell our music rights to kind of offset that cost. And is this film or the content that we're greenlighting, is it possible to do that with that piece of content? And to coming back to my initial thing about IP, I think the most important thing is, if you're doing something big, is it scalable? Is it something that we can build on for the future? And we've seen it across Hollywood also. We've seen the types of Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter that came out of a book. So you can create that content out of anywhere.
Great. Kaushal?
Good morning. Hello, good morning. While we are the largest distribution platform and in the digital space, we look at content slightly differently. We don't create content. We are one of the largest aggregator. So we leave the creative processes to gentlemen, next to me, who are good at it. But for us, it's more of creativity, commercialization, and a strategic lens to it. Effectively, while we end up making creative content, today what's happening is there is not just a single screen. We have 1 billion screens to cater to. The requirement and the consumption patterns are very, very different across all user segments. You have the Gen Zs to the traditional, distribution platforms. It's across multiple screens, across multiple customer segments. How do you ensure that you have content which is created, which can resonate with this audience? While it resonates, it also needs to make commercial sense, because effectively there are crores and crores of monies put behind creating content. And how do you have a commercial model which works? No longer is it only related to content on a viewability screen. It's gone beyond. It's gone into gaming. It's gone into merchandising. You've got multiple other formats which are being created. There is also a community effect which happens. So from our perspective, when we look at content or we look at partnerships, it's not just on a transactional mode. Transactional doesn't lend you or take you too far. Here we're looking at it more strategically, be it, tying up with Reliance Entertainment or Yash Raj or Disney or any of these platforms, we basically look at it in terms of more strategic. So you have now character universes being created. You've got story worlds which are being created. How do we associate? Because eventually for a data-driven digital platform, it's all down to how many eyeballs did we generate, how many clicks, how many completed views. So you are looking and tracking all of those KPIs. We do have stories which are coming. You have seasons after seasons. You've got prequels, sequels. All of these do end up creating brands in themselves. And what we look at is what is the initial response to it? How would it fare in the subsequent sequels or episodes, to build that fandom, to create that user base, because effectively it's all coming down to commerce. Did the person click? Did the person watch? More click, more engagement, more watch time is more advertising slots or more subscription revenue. And eventually it's a sum of subscription or advertising which translates to entire value chain creation across the industry. So that's how we look at it. We are more than open to collaborating with partners, but eventually you do find categorization happening where there are few partners who invest significantly. They build an entire universe or build a IP. And that's a very different thought process to a individual IP or individual property being created without a thought of extension. So people have already started, and content creators are looking at it differently, be it Doom series or Marvel or Singham. It's all been done, or the new spy universe or the horror universe being created. That's all being created not with creating a content which expires, but creating something which kind of expands and kind of grows. That's how we look at it. And that's what we would love to associate, because it makes life easier for us. It's more relatable to the audiences. You've already got audience sets which are created. So effectively, we're creating core audiences which have engaged, and that can then be leveraged for these subsequent extensions and expansions.
Right, because it's coming post the theatrical, so there is a certain eyeball already there. And
so actually both, we look at it both from a pre and a post, because today with social media and community engagements which are happening, there are a lot of conversations which are happening on the, in the ecosystem. So you get a good feel from the conversations in terms of which ways is headed. That kind of pre-release also lends to create that intent. And we want to leverage that intent, because effectively that kind of gets you, gets people to the first click. And after that, it's a creative process. So like Aashish mentioned, who's the star, how is it mounted, what is the story, what's the creative feel on it, to basically take it forward.
Great. Taking from your own conversation, taking a cue from there, what you just discussed. So when evaluating a project, because you will be, you as a platform will be inundated with so much of content that is coming across, And so when evaluating a project, how do you balance data-driven audience and insights with an instinctive or the power of the great story? How do you do that when you're actually choosing? Because you are getting all the the stories coming from all spectrum. Sometimes it is a heartland story. Sometimes it is from again. So how do you balance that? Because that is something which most of the time in the in the room, when the conversation goes on, it's usually these are the questions which are there, that when we are talking to writers, when we are talking to the producers, they usually say that when we meet up with the platform, they have their own conversation that happens, that this will not give that much of engagement, or we are not looking at this point of time this, or so as a platform or even as a content creator, how much of balance between data and the creative, the commercial, of course we spoke about it, but what are the kind of yardstick that is usually measured? You can take it, or Shibasish can take it. You can start from there.
So broadly, we are a mass market platform. As Jio with 500 million subscribers, we kind of all over the place. But while we cover the length and breadth of India, we also have a lot of partnerships. So we've got the top 20 OTT apps where we partnered with. Each app has their own ethos and brand identity, the kind of content they create. So you can associate with that. Now, obviously, if I don't like that kind of content, I will go to some other app, I go and watch something else. What we do is we kind of track it at an audience level. So we try to track at a mass level saying what performed well, what didn't. The easiest gut feel is, oh, there is a Shah Rukh Khan movie. There is, it's a thriller. It's got some comedy. It's got good music, good pre-launch build-up. Should be successful. Should be. But you just got to go and put it. We have to expose it. So we kind of showcase the content. We do the necessary cues for users to be aware that this content is available. We also try to do personalization and regionalization because you've got so many languages, 14, 15 languages in which we offer content. You have to slice it and dice it so that you're more closer to the audience. How do we make sure that the audience is able to reach that content in the least number of clicks and hopefully engage with the content? Because when they come to see the content or they want to engage, they have a preconceived notion with all of this build-up. Have some expectation of what they want to see. And then, when they engage with the content, depending upon how it's mounted, what it is, they kind of decide, whether they want to stick on or not. Earlier, there was only one large screen. You've gone into the cinema hall, you got to sit for 3 hours. Yeah. You spend the money, might as well sit there and come out. Now it's brutal. You don't like it, swipe and you're gone. A lot of engagement is not happening just on long form. Reels, there are micro dramas, there are gaming. Right. Too many engagement points which have got created. And this is even before the actual piece of content is released. So it's a built-up to reach out to that audience. And the best we can do is expose it and make sure it's closer to the audience. Works fine, doesn't work, just like any other platform, move on, put something else, because you still got to keep the user engaged. He's on your platform, he's on your ecosystem, consuming data. Now, because he's on the ecosystem consuming data, we have a fair, sense of cohorts which are already there of what should work or what could work.
Got it.
While this is there at a current state, it's evolving so fast that what is relevant today may not be relevant a week from now. So it needs to be culturally apt. Timing-wise, it needs to be, also relevant. And then we also see how the content is, and that's what kind of drives our engagement. Deeper diving into the content, we obviously know where the drop-off happened. Did you go behind the first, did you complete the first episode? Did you complete the series?
Right.
Where did you drop? So we have some idea which comes on. Over the past 9 years of Jio, operating the platforms, we've got that database which is getting enriched as we, engage on a daily basis. And we're happy to engage with the partners to help them fine-tune. Because if the creative process can be fine-tuned, they are the masters in terms of the creative and the content creation. We are more of a distribution platform.
Right.
It just kind of works hand in glove in terms of how to make it more relevant. And effectively, it's the consumer who's deciding whether they like it, don't like it. That's how it is.
Great. So, Shibasish and Aashish, you both have worked on, franchises, basically IPs like Singham, and we have our Spy Universe and everything. What is interesting to know, how do you decide, or how do producers or studios basically decide when you evaluate the first one, and then, how do we build on from there and the IPs? And there is also a certain observation that some of them work sometimes and some of them don't. So when you are in that table, how do you decide on, okay, this is something, how do you evaluate, okay, these are the things that, we can move forward and develop this beyond the content and beyond, like basically creating a narrative capital, an asset to it. How do you do that?
So, I think let's admit first thing first. A product becomes franchise only when the first or the second one becomes successful. I think all of us, whether in India or globally, especially if you're talking of films, I mean, of course, there are many mediums of content, from televisions to content of long form, short form, etc. I think at any point of time, your first round of first sell, probably you can at best estimate 15%, 20% is the success ratio. So 80% of the content, what you create as filmmakers, whether it is in Hollywood, whether it is in India, or any other developed countries or filmmaking countries, you want to tell a story, you go through that journey, and not necessarily, and not necessarily the wrong word, I think more time necessarily, you don't make at a financial end meeting after the first film happens. And many film gets a leg after what we call a theatrical, maybe it in another format, maybe in good old days, DVD, cassettes, now your TVOD, SVOD, pay TV, any other medium of storytelling. So when you identify a story, there are certain things you look at. I mean, the point which Aashish mentioned earlier, that can at least at a story level it is scalable, can at a story level it can travel to other languages, can at a story level there is a connect. I mean there are a lot of storytelling which you can see today's world, they connect with mytho. Is there any other format or reference where there is another audience pool I can bring into this story? If I look at my own journey of probably last 25 odd years, I mean, we have been opportunity of creating some franchise. Of course, the most popular among them, at least in the current Hindi space, probably Singham. I think many people know, but many people don't know that Singham originally was a Tamil film. I mean, we produced the Tamil film in 17 years back, in 2008. And then when the first Hindi one happened, it happened by, it didn't happen planned way. I remember, I think it was 2010, 2011, 2010, I think November, December, we were signing that point of time director Rohit Shetty for doing a comedy film. And his contract was signed. He, for making a comedy film, he did Golmaal that point of time when we were all excited to do another comedy film. And he was happy, we were in the office meeting. While he was leaving the office, he saw, in those days, there were DVD days, he saw a DVD of Tamil Singham and he said, can I have a look at it? I said, please carry. And he left. And there was, the timeline of our film was, he was committing almost a year down the line. And he came back in probably, I think, next 40 days time, and he said, see, I'll do a film for you, which I promised, but I'll not do a comedy film. I'll do an action film and I'll do a remake of this film. And I've already spoken with the star, and the actor is also agreed, and I want to start shooting in next 35-40 days. So we got too many data at one point of time, and we said, okay, great. But starting a film in next 40, and I remember he started in February 2011. We released in July. So it was like 4 months start to end release, right? But when we did the first Singham, it is not that we thought that it will become a franchise, neither at a Tamil film. Then Tamil, of course, find it in a journey in Hindi. And then 3 years down the line, he did part 2, which is Singham Return. Then again, few years down the line, he brought a character of Simba. Few years down the line, he brought Surya Bangshi. Last year, he did Singham again. So, and it is extremely tough when you look at franchising, because every time you have to aspire to make the next one slightly bigger. It has to get more audience. It has to get more eyeballs. Why? It is not easy to carry franchise. So whether it is Golmaal, whether it is Singham or the Simba franchise, this Cops universe, and there are some like we have done Commando. Any franchise, I think franchise does not. You can't take a call on the first film. Only when it finds a journey, if it gets audience. Many times that audience does not make up his mind in theatrical, because there are many films which are 200, 300, 500 crore. That will not be a franchise. But will it be a franchise? You test it. How much pay TV audience is coming back? How much digital audience is coming back? How much this character is getting loved and talked about in the drawing room and the society going forward? Not necessarily just because you get a big box office in the first one, you can take a franchise. So honest answer, many a time, we probably don't look at whether a subject can be franchisable. If there are any elements in it, like there are folklore, mytho, or from a book or a format, anything which has gone multiple things, it's an additional point, but at the first time you don't take a call necessarily you don't take a call.
Got it. Aashish?
Yeah, so I think Shibashish has covered the basic point about how franchises work. The first one has to be successful. Obviously, then only you'll back the second one, right? But there are times when you have a book, like so I mentioned Harry Potter earlier. So you know that you have an n number of books, and each time if the first book is successful, you can make the second book and the third book and the fourth book. So that is one model of doing it. There are times, now to give you an example, and let's just, just move away from the successful franchises that we know of, but there's an IP called Chhota Bheem, which, if you all don't know, is an animation film, or not actually a film also, started as a TV show called Chhota Bheem, catered to the younger kids. That became a big franchise. And when I was at Netflix, they did a show called Mighty Little Bheem, which was like 3-4 minutes per episode, but silent. Okay, and catering mainly to kids who are like between the age of say 1 month to say 1 or 2 years. And that became one of the biggest global successes of that time. Because it was very simple, there was no language.
Right.
It was very colorful. The characters a little naughty.
No visual, you mean?
Yes. So people could just sit anywhere in the world, and it was getting hits from Latin America. Nobody knows Chhota Bheem over there, but it did attract a lot of audience. So there are times when there are franchises you can find derivatives of. It need be a continuation of, so we've discussed scaling it. So Dhoom, Singhams have to be scaled up the next time around. But there are these smaller franchises that can be made into something very unique. You could do a prequel, you could do a sequel, you could create some new characters out of them. And I think that is where we should be aiming for, because this is what we should be aiming for the simple reason that every time you cannot up the game by scaling it. So if we are talking about Dhoom series, so of course Dhoom 1, Dhoom 2, Dhoom 3, it was scaled up by YRF. Right. Now when they've not officially announced Dhoom 4, but whenever it gets made, it'll have to be scaled up, and there are certain budgets that we do get saturated at a certain budget for all Indian movies. So that's where the challenge is about scaling the expensive franchises. But if we can find the Chhota Bheems of the world, or there are certain South films that have worked very well, like recently we saw this film called Loka, which did wonderfully well, wasn't a very expensive film, and I think the next time they do it, the business could be 5x of what it did right now, because it'll build its own fandom through OTT, and when it's watched across the languages, and that's what this is something that's been happening with a lot of South films, like Kantara. When it released, was a small budget film, and it did so well, was lapped up in the North also, and now you have chapter 1 of Kantara, which probably is made at 6-7 times the budget of the previous one, but will also give them that kind of a return, in terms of profits. Right. So yeah, there are various ways of creating IPs and franchises. We have to be mindful of the content. Without that, nothing can work. And just to go back a little to your earlier question about data, see, if data was everything, then every piece of content would have become successful, right? Because it's not that the OTTs don't know the data points and all of that. There are times when you're making the same content with like a show for the second season or the third season or the fourth season, but it fails miserably. Now the data points were all common. The genre was common, the characters were same, the director was same, but the content or the creative did not work for the audience. So that is the bottom line every time we create anything.
Right. Now, in fact, taking from Chhota Bheem and Loka, so over the last, I think we were even discussing, a while ago, over the last 2 years, maybe, 2 years, 2.5 years, we are actually seeing a huge shift towards myths. Maybe it's urban legends, myths like, like again Chhota Bheem or something like that. So do ancient myths act as our first shared IPs?
So I think I'll bring another facet of this space. See, when you take characters and suppose a character can get established in one medium. Take the example of Chhota Bheem or take the example of say Dhoom or Singham, and then it translates into other mediums also. Like if you've seen a scenario that, and I'm just closing the loop of Singham, that it from film, it become an animation character, Little Singham. From there, it become a mobile gaming character. So it is going through his own journey, and same has done by Chhota Bheem. Globally, there is a large universe where lot of Indian subjects are going, and there Mytho is taking an interesting space is gaming. And what I'm meaning is basically probably AAA gaming or console gaming, right? Now what we are seeing globally is that the characters are first getting into a console game or a AAA game, then from there it is coming to mobile game, and from there it is coming into theatrical form. And there are a number of lot of successful examples. I mean, and Mytho is playing an interesting role there. A lot of the characters are playing a role there. Like if you look at this year, not a Mytho bit, but the characters which have came from game to film to shows, Minecraft, Lilo and Stitch,
Yeah.
Need for Rush,
Yes.
Need for Speed, Rush in some manner, F1 in some manner. We are more and more seeing, while India, the console is still very niche, and mobile, we don't have so much of paying consumer, but we have a base. But globally, if you look at it, the gaming industry is larger than the film industry.
True.
Right? So there is a significant work happening that how character can be built into the games and then can brought into here. One live example is happening currently in India. Not many people are probably aware. One of the AAA quality producer globally, they have joined hands with Mr. Amitabh Bachchan and Amish Tripathi
Yes.
and creating a gaming space, and the company is called Tara Gaming. They are taking characters from Indian Mytho, building up a console game. And a console game, AAA, will take 3 to 5 years to make. Probably 1.5, 2 years have happened. They will probably have another 3 years of journey. But here, very interesting space. The producers are most successful makers from France and UK. They thought that let's look at Indian Mytho space. They would have choice of going to Greece and etc. But 20 years back or last 1 or 2 decades, if we see that even gaming worldwide is getting into Mytho space. We have seen successful world in Korea. We have seen successful space in Spain. And now our AAA console gaming company is taking an Indian Mytho, getting a writer like Amish Tripathi on the board, and
Right.
getting Mr. Bachchan, senior Mr. Amitabh Bachchan on board, means that they want to create a universe based on Indian mythos and Indian characters. So all the Rakshas and etc. of the space is there.
Right.
It's also in the timeline of Ramayana and etc. Of course, they're not bringing Ramayana and Ram characters, but they're bringing that world. But interestingly, what we are seeing is in the reverse journey, where Indian mythos getting into a global platform through gaming, and if that hits the jackpot or that does well, then those characters can come into your films and shows and OTT. So yes, I think Mytho, definitely there are a lot of other examples. As we see in the country, we're seeing Ramayana happening. We see a lot of, last couple of months back, the animation of
Narasimha.
Mahabhataram, which did like phenomenal business.
Yeah.
These are all like Mytho characters, but probably the same reason that is there a root, and how can you in the storytelling level you can connect the root, you create a larger consumer interest and create a larger universe, right? And it's happening globally, not
Globally.
necessarily in only India, it's happening globally in that space.
Ashish?
Yeah, just to add to this, see, without a doubt, first, let's not forget that every 6th person in the world is an Indian, right? So anything that has to do with Indian culture will definitely resonate with most of the people in the world, because that's 1/6 of the world, right? And we have great stories. Let's go back in time. Today, if we just take the example of Mahabharata, okay, it's probably one of the best stories in terms of drama, in terms of characters, and in terms of what you learn out of it once you've seen it. You know, so if we pick those characters, and it's happening already. There are plans to make a story on Abhimanyu. There's a plan to make a film on Karn. You know, so obviously I'm not even talking about the Arjuns of the world and Lord Krishna and all of that. That's also happening. Last year we saw Kalki that did so well, so which was a small portion of Mahabharata that was pulled out, but that's done a great number. So within that Mahabharata, if we really search and look for characters and stories, I think we can create more than 100 blockbusters.
True.
We just have to get it right. And it'll directly reach the audience, and people feel so connected when they see it. And there's so much of message, there's such good message in that,
Right.
that it's a learning for all of us, whatever the age group is.
Right.
So yes, we should back the Indian mythos.
Right. Right. Kaushal?
So mythos are there, will be there. These stories will continue. What is happening is there are remixes being done. You've got new creative outlook which is being done with multiple screens and more audiences joining. The core is always there. The connect is there. So culturally the story is relevant. However, it gets executed. But what's happening is with every generation, if with every change or a creative freedom which is being done around those stories is what is making the difference. And these stories have so many characters. As Shibasish said, and Aashish also said, you have so many characters around which you can build your entire storyline, and they can all act as separate chapters or books which you can kind of build out into content pieces and build on it, which is amazing. I think so we'd never done that, but now with more democratization happening in terms of content creation, you don't necessarily need to have a big studio backing to create a IP. IPs are even being created, on the web. You've got on the internet multiple platforms which allow you to do that. Take something like webtoons where you're starting something and it is getting, converted into movies. So that size and scale is already there. What we did not have was that opportunity to democratize it, the opportunity to quickly create something, engage, get audience feedbacks, and further build onto it. So that is now possible. And as you keep building your core audiences, you get your fandom, your IP is getting created as we talk. As we create the IP, then those multiple offshoots keep happening, whether it starts from gaming or it starts from a social media engagement, wherever you start from. But eventually the lines are getting blurred, and these stories are transitioning from a large screen to a small screen to a mini screen to gaming to different kinds of engagement. And as
Basically
that
a
keep happening,
multiplier.
it's just changing everything. And you've now got 1 billion people who are there. And how do you engage with them? And you cannot engage with one single formula.
Yeah.
So that's happening. But the core, which is, do you know Mahabharata? Yes. Do you know Ramayana? Yes. Do you know Ram? Yes. So those characters are already there. So you get the benefit of those stories and characters, and you just get to leverage it, which makes life a lot more easier than creating something altogether fresh, because that is investment and that needs a lot of thought process.
Right.
Here you've got a mytho, you've got a story where you've got a lot of things which are there, and you just pick a thread and just start building onto it, and then it's up to you how you create the conversations around it.
Right. Now, coming to the future, basically, the most common question, as well as how are AI and IP tokenization and creator economy models changing the way stories are owned and funded? Aashish, want to take that first?
Yeah, so obviously the world has opened up to AI, right? We are still in early days as far as the studios in India or in Mumbai are concerned. But so I think Shibasish spoke about Mahavir Narasimha. Okay, so that was animation, but that could have easily been created through AI, right? Something like that. We know AI can create a lot of content. Now the question is, how do we, make it useful for new creators? So while the studios can continue making the big films, people who are creatively inclined could be using software. They may not have access to big stars, but through AI can create their own stars. I think that's the next step we all should be working towards, creating new stars through AI. Very recently, there was a social media post about some model who's been created out of AI, and she was being followed. Yeah, it went viral. So we can clearly create a lot of content through AI. Very soon there'll be some platforms where you will only get to watch content created through AI. So as a subscriber, you can just go there and subscribe to it and watch content that will flow very seamlessly to you. As a creator, if you can learn AI better, I mean, just imagine tomorrow when you, not me, but the next generation, when they have kids and they want to tell a story, they don't need to then narrate it. They can actually show it to them. the same story that they want to tell can be created on a laptop or on a TV screen. So that's where we are heading. And I think with tokenization, what will happen is monetization will become a lot easier. There could be multiple partners funding it. Because that's the other thing. There are a lot of these apps where you can create songs, you can create content. Me sitting over here can go on a website and buy that singer off or that particular song
That's
out,
right.
you know. And when it gets monetized, I get the profit. So the world is opening out through AI and through these things for creators to create not only audio visual, music, many other things that, and could be anything that's creative. Tokenization will definitely help that. You can get the funding from anywhere across the world and you'll be able to monetize it across the world. So I think that's what we should definitely be focusing on.
Got it. Shibasish?
See, I think AI. There are two strong divergent thought process in the space, right? There is nothing. It is nothing to say a strong yes or a strong no. There are two very divergent thought process globally. What we are seeing now in most of the countries as well as in India. Of course, there is a significant amount of risk, uncertainty, concern, work loss, skill set loss, and etc., which is there because this business is about people. This business is about art and culture and creativity and skills of basically people. And we are finding a situation. It's happening already. It has already started happening. It has started happening in our own, as we speak, in Bombay or different elements like the lowest hanging items are virtually going. So dubbing studios don't require now. You can do it completely in AI. I mean, most of the marketing units, creative units, companies, marketing agencies, those works are completely happening in AI. And of course, I mean, as you just increase the scale from the lower hanging to the other ones, that element is creeping everywhere. So there is a significant amount of uncertainty on the creator community or the people community in that. This is also true at the fact that when a technology disruption happen, the learning is that how you adapt and adopt to it, then try to be working against it. Because if the technology disruption will happen on its own course, you can't stop it. I think the whole focus has to be that yes, there will be short and medium term significant amount of people will find themselves unemployable, will find themselves without a job, will find suddenly their skill set not required. But it is at the same point of time in next 5 years, 10 years, 1 decade timeline, how we can make the process ethical, because there's a large debate which is going globally is that what all you are learning, are you learning from my paid IP or not? I mean, that's starting every global companies, every global places, this litigation. And I'm sure that in next few years time, the regulations will be formalized. That's one. And secondly, how do the next generation or the current generation pick up the skill set, what Aashish was saying, that you need to pick up the skill set. There is no, it is like an either or situation. It's not an and or situation. You need to pick up the skill set to become relevant, to provide a better quality, to provide at a better pricing point. Because ultimately all what we are doing, we are trying to do how to satisfy a consumer and how to take a portion of his wallet from a consumer. If that holds true, better take the technology, learn the technology and go in that path.
And go along with that.
You have to embrace that path.
That's right.
There is no way. I mean, in spite of whatever the issues, you have to embrace that path.
Right. I think it's been absolutely a great session. And do we have time for questions? 2 questions or some? Okay, great. So what would be before we kind of move to the questions in next 5 to 10 years for the producers and for the content creators and everyone who's sitting over here, what is that one message or something that you can just kind of like quickly put that together in a couple of sentences? Like,
I mean, I think what all we have been trying to do in the last 50 or 100 years, just make a better story and try to understand what consumers will love to see. One critical problem in the filmmaking, and 99% time we blame the creators, is that you have to foresee what a consumer will like 2 years down the line or 3 years down the line, right? But just try to make a better story. There is no other shortcut to it.
Ashish?
I don't know how to sum it up shortly, but yeah, very basic thing, create content with your heart. I think that's most important. Just be true to yourself, authentic to yourself, try and say a story that you want to say. Don't go with formula, because formula will invariably fail and has been failing repeatedly of late. So yeah, I would just say go with your heart and just tell the story you want to tell.
Kaushal?
I think the story is your seed capital. I think so you need to invest into that and build on it. Gone are the days where you need to depend on funding from outside. You have multiple platforms and different ways to get funding and to greenlight projects and make it available to the masses, be more relevant in terms of what you want to do, and listen to what the community or the chatter is happening, because that will keep you more relevant and not have a story which is created but does not get the eyeballs.
Great. Thank you for such incredible insights and the kind of vision. I'm definitely sure that the audience is going to take back a lot of understanding. So I'll just open the floor for a couple of questions. So if you have any questions, please. Can they have the mic, please? Can they have the mic? Okay.
Hi, my name is Josh from Taiwan Plus. Thank you so much for all that you've shared today. It's been a really excellent panel. I'm curious to ask, when it comes to international collaborations for storytelling, where do you see that going in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of stories that can reach across borders, across cultures, and be relevant to wider groups of a wider audience, I guess? I guess especially to Aashish and Shibasish.
Yeah, so hi, thanks for the question and thanks for the kind words about this panel discussion. International collaborations have been a little tricky for India. The simple reason that, and I'm just taking the funding aspect out of it. I'm just talking about the content bit of it, right? Because, see, if it's about just funding each other, then it's very easy to do a collaboration. And then it's not about the content. Finally, we have to see what succeeds. So sadly, a lot of the international collaborations haven't really worked so far. But to answer your question, there's always hope. There's hope because content now travels. Even the Indians watching content over here, thanks to OTT, have got used to a lot of international content, have understood that kind of storytelling. Because earlier what used to happen, we had a certain way of making films, and if I'm talking only about films and not shows, there had to be songs, there had to be a little action, there had to be a little what we call Indian masala in the film for a wider audience. But now they have got used to watching stories on, say, Netflixes of the world and all the OTT platforms, which gives us a lot of hope for the international content to work in India. See, globally, anything can work. Okay, that Parasite could have been made anywhere, right? It just didn't need Korean faces. It could have been made in India. It could have be made anywhere, made in the country that you're coming from, and it would have worked for all the audiences. So the bottom line is finding that content that can actually work as a co-production. From India, we've had a lot of success, or at least had pre-COVID, in China. They were not official co-productions, but we could see the Indian content landing over there and making a lot of money. So that is where the hope is. That if you have content that's relatable to a certain audience in that country, sky is the limit. Indian films have been doing well all over the world, but mainly being watched by the Indians or maybe people from Bangladesh or Pakistan who understand the language. And now there's a certain audience that does get attracted to it because so-called Bollywood or so-called Indian cinema has become big. Going forward, we should definitely be attempting a lot of co-productions. There are a lot of rebates being offered in India for co-productions now. If you want to shoot your film in India, there are a lot of rebates and co-production treaties that we have signed with other countries. So we should definitely be a little more focused in achieving that. The other challenge that has been is that the bigger studios of India have not really focused on co-productions at an international level. I think if there's an attempt by each one to do that, that will also make it a lot easier because funds will be easily available from here, and it'll again be scalable and can be built up to a very big level.
Yeah, sorry. My name is Jignesh Muse. I'm actually, this question is to all of the panelists over here. Do you think that Indian content right now is slowly and steadily getting to its core, and it is getting more towards, you can say, soil related? I mean, they are kind of relating to the country, to the India as a country, Bharat as a country. So these content that we are seeing right now, it's kind of looks like it's a cultural explosion that is happening right now. Do you think it would be leading it further? Because we are seeing a lot of things. I mean, right from Kalki, Kantara, I would say it actually started with Bahubali, you can say that. So we will, do you see these kind of a cultural explosive content in future?
I think Indian content, I mean, it's such a diverse country. In last 100 years, there are umpteen examples that Indian content, some content are working at the core. So being such a diverse country, it is difficult to put one broad stroke. This is never in this country will find a scenario that one particular cultural phenomena works and content will happen like that. Diverse in terms of culture, diverse in terms of linguistic and etc. Like if you go back to Do Biga Zameen, or you go back to Bimal Rai's film, Gurudat's film, if you go back to 80s and 90s of angry young man of as Mr. Bachchan sir and etc. Those are all, or Dilip Kumar's time, you will find films or stories used to made based on what the society needed at that point of time, and then it transformed. Next in the next 2 decades, you will find Lagan. Now, a few years back, you have seen Bajrangi Bhaijaan, you have seen 3 Idiots. So every decade, you will find some film coming, and it hits a right chord. The country is so wide and diverse, there is no universal chord. So I don't think it is fair to say that Indian content or consumers are going into the core because there is a Kantara, Bahubali, RRR and some films which are very rooted, and correctly so. At the same time, at the same phenomena, you also find Sayara doing a 300 crore box office number, or any other film going to that kind of a business. Because our audience are very diverse. So long as we cater something for every audience, I think it is good, we are happy about it. If we make something which does not cater to anyone, majority of the times, that's the problem situation. But the country is so wide, it is great. You don't have to follow one core, one path, one nation. You just cater to your audience. So long it's commercially working, when you cater to that audience, that's a great storytelling. Nothing to complain about it.
Great. I have been signaled by the management that we are running out of time. We could actually have continued this conversation so much. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. Thank you so much for such an attentive audience, and thank you so much for coming and making this so special. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
That conversation was actually thought-provoking, I must say. Thank you for sharing such diverse insights. We'll just hold you back on the stage for a minute. May I please call Mr. Satyendra Mehra, Group Director and Member of the Management Board, Nürnberg Messe India, to hand over a token of small appreciation from our end. That's a small step. Yes, that's a small green step on your behalf. We've planted a tree at the Sundarbans. Small green step that we've taken in line with our sustainability initiatives at Nürnberg Messe India.